Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Comic Talk Tuesday. I'm here with comic artists Ray Dillon and Renae De Liz. How you both doing today?
We're doing good. How are you?
I guess to start off the comic talking, I guess maybe you should, both one at a time, talk about your own personal experience with what you consider at least, your first professional comic that you came out with.
Are you sure you don't want us to say it at the same time?
Yeah, we can talk over each other the whole time if you want.
Anyway, you first. Ray, you get to go first.
Me first? Okay. I had done some, back in the day we were on Digital Webbing, which was a comic book forum where you could post your art and meet up with people. I had gotten a job doing pencils on a book called The Manitou, which was a Native American kind of ghost story in a way. And then that never got published, although it did have a cover by the Hildebrandt brothers, which was really cool to see. But then it never
Was that the
came
one
out.
was that the one with the zombie cat?
It did have a zombie cat and a zombie
I remember.
baby inside the womb, which was strange to draw. And Renee loves the way I drew the womb back when I was like 18 years old. Didn't know anything about childbirth.
We'll laugh at that one next stream.
Right, yeah, we should look at that. And then my first real published work was actually as a letterer. I got hired by Jay Ferber for Image Comics and his book Noble Causes. I did a fill-in issue and then became the regular letterer on that, then doing design and through my studio, Golden Goat Studios, that I had started up. And then we ended up moving on to a bunch of different books from there, doing all different forms of creation on various books. So.
All right, and Renae?
First professional work?
What you consider professional, I suppose.
Well, see, I did a comic for Blue Line, or no, first were the sketch cards. Okay. Yeah, I went to, I come from a small town, Brookings, Oregon, very small. You can't get comic news or anything. And I heard the tale that there was a magical convention down in San Diego. So I went down there just on a whim, finally got down there and went, and Kat Staggs, who's a friend of mine, she introduced us to the people at Pops. And so we both got onto a Lord of the Rings sketch card set. So that was the first job. Started the whole thing.
That is pretty cool.
We each did 1,000 Lord of the Rings cards. It was crazy. It was a lot of fun though.
Those were some long nights.
So, you want to tell everyone about New Quest Comics?
Sure, yeah, that's our the new store website that we started up that has all of our original artwork available and our books, including Peter Pan, the graphic novel Volume 1, which is written or adapted and illustrated by Renee, and I do the inks, colors, and letters. And then there's some brushes I made down there.
Yeah, nice.
Looks they should work with Flip Studio.
Yep, work with Photoshop, Flip Studio, probably other things, but I haven't tried it. But I think
they're really good.
Original art by real humans. That's pretty nice. This is nice. So you get to just choose a character.
Yeah.
To do a SketchUp.
Trying to set up, because we have a big project that's going to come out at some point, hopefully soon. And so I really wanted a good place where people can request commissions and stuff, because trying to keep track of email is pretty tough when you have 4 kids. So
right. Mm-hmm. Definitely will be interested to hear about your own secret project.
When you're how much more I can say about it.
Yeah.
Can't say a whole lot yet. It's going to be cool, though.
Do you have a planned announcement date?
No.
No.
I've been working on this thing for years. It's just been slow going. The way our lives are, and I'm the kids again, having the kids mixed in with the comic making, it makes it hard. So it takes a little bit longer.
And
right.
We're working with a major publisher, one of the big ones, and they have been very lenient with just us taking our time. Renee's been able to kind of craft the story and then kind of take a step back and relook at it to kind of put more thought into it than you would normally get with like a monthly book. So we're pretty excited about that. We're getting to really put some love and care into it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I guess the next question would be like, what is your favorite comic that you've ever worked on?
Good question.
I would say this one that I'm currently on.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Yes. I'm very excited about it. I had like when I was around 16 and I was like hardcore drawing comics, and this is before I quit in high school because everyone thought it was lame for a while. But like I decided like at some point like yes, I'm just gonna be a comic book artist. That's just what I'm gonna do. That's my career choice. And I like zeroed in on one book. I was like, this is the most challenging character I think I could ever do. And so that's kind of been like my goal. So now I'm doing that book. So I'm really excited. Took a while, but yeah, so it's my favorite. Followed by The Last Unicorn.
I was gonna say
that one looked beautiful, by the way.
I have all of her books here. It's hard to pick the ones that her and I do together. It's hard to pick one because they're just all. The Last Unicorn is like a classic story.
Oh yeah.
We did Legend of Wonder Woman, which was an awesome book to get to work on. Having her vision for Wonder Woman be realized was really cool. And then our Peter Pan book, which is one of my favorite stories. So like all the ones that she ends up wanting to do are always just some of my favorite projects that we've ever worked on for sure. Me personally, I guess it would be The Evolution, my current book, just because it's the best work I've ever done as an artist.
It's yours.
And it's mine.
Mm-hmm.
And it's printed and sitting right there. It's cool to
what
be
about
able to
you, Trisha?
do it. Yeah.
Favorite book I've ever worked on?
Yeah.
Probably the one I'm working on right now, Reaper.
I thought so.
It's always the one that you're currently working on, right?
Yeah. It's looking really cool.
I know, that looks great. And you said that, like, how long were you thinking about the story? Like you mentioned, a long time.
It's going to be like roughly 100 pages. So they're all going to be like fairly thick books that I'm coming out with. But hopefully
awesome
it has a readership.
Yeah, we'll be reading it for sure.
How long were you thinking about the story?
Oh God. So similar to like manga style stuff, I was thinking like multiple books that string together on multiple story arcs. So it could go on for theoretically forever.
That's
just
cool.
Kind of depends on like where is the ending point that I think would be satisfying for it. But yeah, as I've said before in other like streams and stuff, definitely one of my more or most ambitious projects that I'm dedicating a lot of time to.
Awesome. I'm so glad you went for it.
Me too.
Yeah.
I think you were questioning it at some point, like you were thinking about doing some other stuff instead, or you just knew you were going to do Reaper next.
Oh man. Well, it's complicated because I didn't realize that I would be still coming out with Sonic City Witch issues all the way till now, and I still have 2 more of those to get done. And you know, I don't usually like to work on projects on top of each other like this.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what ended up happening when my schedule got all mixed up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really just want to work on this, so I made the mental decision that I'm just going to.
Awesome.
And hopefully it's good.
Yep, I think it's going to be really good.
Be great.
Hearing that you have that kind of passion for it and are excited for it, I think it's going to turn out really good. And anytime a writer and artist is doing their own project, those are my favorite kind of books. So can't wait to see it.
Do you find, because like my favorite too is writing and drawing, like that's what I always love to do. But do you find like as you draw the book, like you get ideas and you just want to like change the story, like as you're drawing it, like that things you didn't think of until you started drawing it?
Oh yeah, definitely. Because like I'm a lot more of a visual person. So when I'm writing out scripts, it just comes off very janky, like I'm just writing down concepts. And it's not until I start like drawing out the pages and getting a feel for like the characters and their expressions and what they're going to be feeling that I really get it, like what the story needs to be.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my friend and I, who started the studio back in the day, we got into film. We started working in film, and so we were big on like screenwriting. And so in the early days, I would script everything really strict, and then try to draw it. But more recently, I've kind of given up the scripting altogether, and I just kind of draw the layouts and then figure out what people are saying. And it feels like a more natural way of telling the story, because half the time I would start drawing the panels that I had written down, trying to be strict about it like I would with someone else's script, and I would just realize like there's a better way to do it, or like want to show something a little differently, and it felt better to not have that kind of structure to have to follow per page, just kind of be more free with it and see what comes out.
Yeah, my experience, it's definitely much easier when you're drawing out the pages than it is scripting it. It might work for different people, other different brains that work different ways, but it's hard, especially when I'm working with like other artists, like collaborating with them, and I gotta put out a script. But even then, most of the time I just break and start drawing them, and it takes up more time. But it really is the best way to get a story across.
It is, and even like I think Alan Moore and Neil Gaiman both even will draw layouts or sketches of ideas and stuff like that to send to the artist, just to give them an idea of what they have in their head, and then say like for the artist just to, if they have something else, just go with it, because that's the best way really to tell a visual story, is having the artist kind of come up with things instead of having them try to be strict with the script.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, I guess next question. Do you read manga? And if you do, which are your favorites?
Funny, that's where you got your start, right? So.
Well, that's where I got my start. I can't like I don't have a lot of time, so I haven't been able to like really get invested in anything. But like currently, like I kind of steal my son's Attack on Titan manga. I really like that. And Sailor Moon, revisiting Sailor Moon. I never actually read the manga of that. I have a Ray Earth book. I don't know if you know about Ray Earth. It's a really old property.
Nah.
But like, yeah, it's really cool. It's like three girls that are knights, like fighting in magical land, So, but my favorites when I first started reading manga was like Vampire Princess Miyu. Actually, I think that was my ultimate favorite. And then there was like I think Outsiders, I believe. I forget who did it now, but I love manga. It changed everything, like how I was drawing. I'm really grateful I found it.
Yeah, I mean, manga industry is definitely booming right now. But what about you, Ray?
Yeah, I didn't really get into it when I was younger. And the first real, I had watched some anime and stuff like that, but yeah, not I didn't really see any manga, and things like Dragon Ball Z. I didn't really like the style of it and stuff. Now I appreciate it more, but at the time I was like, they kind of have baby faces and big muscular arms, and I don't understand. But in my early 20s, I had entered a blog contest for drawing horror art. And I won it, and I got Uzumaki by Junji Ito, and The Red Snake by Hideshi Hino, which is his like influence, Junji Ito's influence. And those books, especially Uzumaki, just like totally changed my view of what comics could be, even, let alone like what I thought of manga. But I still didn't really get in, like, other than reading those and having those like impact me really hard, which you could probably still see in my work today. I didn't really get into reading it until more recently, when I started reading Berserk and some various other books like that. I'm trying to think what they are, but at least Berserk has been a really good one that I've enjoyed. I'm kind of new to manga, really.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have on talked to a lot of people who are like extremely new to the whole manga thing, but have always been into American comics. And now that this, other countries like coming out with all these comics that are doing so much better, they're like, maybe I should take a look at these and see what's going on over here now,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. A few years ago, I started like once I started seeing Junji Ito stuff at like Barnes and Noble or whatever, I started collecting all of his stuff. I got it all over here.
Nice.
And just really enjoyed everything he did. So that led me to want to try other series and things like that.
What are your favorites? You're like on top of it.
Yeah,
Tell us which ones are good.
I super enjoyed Summertime Rendering, which is the first that comes to mind because I'm next to a bookshelf and I have them all displayed over there. I got the hardcover volumes from Udon, and they're quite nice.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And
what genre? Like your favorite genre too? Like, what would it be?
My favorite genre would probably be somewhere of some mix between action, comedy, romance, I suppose. I like it when those three genres blend together into a thing.
That is something I like about the manga that I at least look through and some of that I've read is they seem to blend a lot of different genres together. Like it might be kind of fun and then kind of scary and then sci-fi and like just kind of goes wherever the story seems to want to go. And that's really neat. With so many volumes, like they can kind of play around with that. Most American comics kind of stay in whatever genre they're in.
Yeah, I always felt like it was almost a mistake that so many American comics stuck to doing a very specific type of comic, like a very specific superhero type style. And it was all of the like different stuff, all of the variations would always be outliers. But in manga, it's a completely different story because they just made manga for everybody, for like every type of person, every genre. There's slice of life stuff. There's sports manga where they play different sports. And I think that really helped broaden their audience overall. And it might be part of the reason why in Japan they have like a much higher percentage of the population actually reading manga, as the United States has a much lower population actually reading comics.
Yeah. It seems like it would be hard to get people into like sports comics or anything like that. I've often wondered that, like if I did a soccer book, because I like soccer, like would that translate into American comics, or how could I make that be appealing to the American crowd?
And some people like tell me, oh well, there's webcomics and there's other stuff like that, and I look at webcomics, and even on like Webtoon, it's all one specific type of comic. Like, have you guys ever been on Webtoon?
Yeah, I've been on there. Not in a while though. What is it now?
90% of the stuff on Webtoon is in the super trashy romance genre. A lot of gay
Princess Jewels.
That what Princess Jewels was a webtoon? Yes,
that was great. I wish he would continue that one. I was so bummed. Gotta see what happens. She has to collect her jewels.
Jeez. I guess I could, but I feel as though there's not going to be too many twists and turns in the Princess's Jewels. Pretty sure she's just going to keep on collecting men and doing with them what she will.
Oh, you might have shown me that video, honey. Did you show me that video?
Yeah, I showed you. It was hilarious.
Yeah, it's starting to. Yeah, okay. I'm starting to remember it now. Yeah.
Yeah, that was brutal. Well, it's also like Webtoon also has like the tendency of people uploading on there, linking to their Patreon, where you can view all the characters not safe for work, basically porn comics, just pay an extra fee for that. And maybe that would be fine on another website, but Webtoon is primarily marketed towards children, so it's a little bit inappropriate. It's like
Yeah,
Yeah.
they
that's
ran ads on Cartoon Network and stuff, you know?
Oh wow,
Yeah.
really? I didn't know
Yeah.
that. I know I've
Yeah.
seen webtoon ads around like on YouTube and stuff. They'll pop up every once in a while, but I didn't realize on YouTube.
The webtoon ads on YouTube are always like especially trashy, I find.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
It's always some guy in a collar or something. It's like, whoa, what's going on here?
Yeah. And now the big webtoon, that's Lore Olympus, right? Is that the one that really took off?
That's one of them.
Yeah.
That's one that people talk about. And I
Okay.
heard that it was also like very trashy type stuff.
Oh, really? Okay. I got the impression it was maybe like a more like a lower age. I mean, maybe it is like a younger age kind of fantasy book, but I haven't seen much of it or anything. But I see the title around quite a bit.
Yeah, yeah. I've definitely seen it around. You know, honestly, I've considered doing a read through of that also, but it also,
Oh, yeah.
you know, has a huge fan base. So I don't know if I would just like rally the 13-year-olds to come on my channel and yell at me.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It might make them all angry. I'd be curious to see that though, because it's one that I've kind of been wondering what it's about, I guess. But I will say, anytime I go on Webtoon, none of them really stand out to me as like something I would want to pick up or read, except for like some of the maybe smaller books, like in the Creator Studio or whatever it's called. I forget.
Yeah, the canvas.
Yeah, yeah. Because I had put one of my books or part of one of my books on there, not in Webtoon format, but just sort of pages, and was kind of looking around at the different books in that same genre, which is a horror thing, and there were some really cool things in there. But most of the main page stuff, I just haven't been super interested in, I guess.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I have seen some good stuff on Webtoon, but it took a lot of effort to find them because they're just buried under like heaps and heaps of the same type of comic and pseudo porn and stuff like that.
So even those good ones are buried under that? Like they don't get as many numbers? Like
Oh no.
high numbers?
Yeah, unfortunately not. I don't know how the Webtoon algorithm works, but they are certainly not boosting the good stuff.
Oh, that's too bad. When Webtoon first kind of started, it did seem like they were focused on like the quality and different titles and stuff too. I remember that when I first started seeing Webtoon, it seemed like it was going to be a pretty good variety of stuff. But nowadays, it seems kind of like all the same book.
Yeah, they hooked everyone into using the platform, and then it is like a bait and switch. Now you don't get good stuff anymore.
Darn. Kind of like Netflix and everything else, I guess.
Huh? Yeah, right.
Kid alert, I'll be right back.
Okay.
Should we wait for her, or what's your setup like? Are you both in the same room, or?
No, I'm up in the attic studio area, sort of. It's mostly storage, but I got a bit of a studio here. And Renae kind of prefers she has a room as well for when the kids are going crazy and she needs to work and I'm watching the kids.
Okay.
But she also has always kind of preferred just to sit on the couch and work. Like Legend of Wonder Woman, all those books were all drawn just sitting on the couch.
Oh wow! I don't know if I'd be able to draw on the couch.
Yeah, me neither. No, I've always been like big on having like I don't have one currently, but like a art table, and all the proper tools and all that stuff. Nowadays I work on a Cintiq, but yeah, she's always just been kind of cool with drawing wherever.
Yeah, before I had a nice desk to work on, I used to have a lap desk for working on, and I would work on my bed, but it would kill my back every time.
Yeah, I can't. I have to kind of sit up, or I worry about her posture because she's always just kind of scrunched up on the couch, but she seems fine with it. So.
Right. I see people always promoting those like standing desks. And I also wonder like how does that work? Because I can't imagine myself standing and working.
No.
But apparently that could be like better for your posture.
Yeah, I've done a lot of standing. When I used to work at the kitchen or dining room table, and I would have my Cintiq kind of propped up there, so I would kind of work right here. Now I can put my desk up, but it's not as high, so I kind of am leaned over it, which kind of gets like a pain on my neck after a while and stuff. But I do like standing to work. It is better for you too, other than sitting in a chair and cutting off your leg circulation all the time, and all that.
Right.
I don't know. I've seen some artists use the treadmill desks. I don't know how that works.
Treadmill?
How do you draw on a treadmill?
I've never heard
crazy.
that. That sounds funny though.
Yeah, some people make it work. I mean, I think they're going really, really slow or something, but it's to keep your blood flowing and stuff, which is better. Sitting all the time is kind of a silent killer, really. That's kind of grim.
I have like the little pedal thing that goes under the desk.
Oh yeah, right.
I tried that for a little bit. It didn't work out. It's just still moves you. Like, yeah, like I can't just immobilize myself from the waist up and then have my legs pedaling. So like it just wiggles the whole thing.
I mean, in theory, it's fine so long as you're taking breaks to like stand up and move around, I guess. But I never want to take a break. I always want to just like complete a certain section one way through. Like I'm trying to do like a page a day as I'm working on the next comic project.
Awesome.
And yeah, one page takes a long time though.
Yeah.
How long does it take you like to?
Yeah. Well, I'm working with old drafts pages, and then find myself redrawing like the drafts that I drew before because like, my art style has changed so much in the years since I drew those pages.
Yeah.
And then I come in with the inks and start inking everything up and trying to make it look all nice. And then I feel the blood loss in my legs. And
yeah.
So it's always difficult for me to take breaks just because I have that mindset of I gotta finish it now.
Yeah.
So cool. Keep going.
So what are you drawing in? Are you like in Clip Studio or Procreate or something? Or
I love Clip Studio.
Yeah, that's what I use. Yeah, I finally made the switch a couple years back. I'd been using Photoshop forever, but I started seeing some of the tools and just had to go for it.
Yeah, there's this other art program that I vaguely heard about from Manga Plus that they try to push. I'm trying to remember what it was called. It was like some sort of jump art program. God, I wish I could figure out what it was called. I don't know anyone who uses it, but they're trying to like rival Clip Studio. Really? And I'm curious if anyone has ever used it.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I've heard of it. Do you know if they have curvilinear perspective tools? Because if they do, I might switch. I'm surprised
Jump
that.
Paint.
Go ahead.
That's what it's
called.
Was it called? It's called Jump Paint.
Jump Paint. I might actually look that up.
Yeah. So right now they're offering it for free. Well, free in quotes, right? Because they're trying to get people to use it, and then eventually they'll charge for it. But that's what they're trying to rival Clip Studio right now.
Interesting. And so it's Metabang, which is like
I
had that on my phone for a while. Metabang.
Oh, Metabang.
Doodle around on it. Yeah.
I used the iPad one to do my paneling orders. I think it does really well with that.
Oh, Metabang?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know you did that.
Yeah, so I just use it for that. What's that?
You don't use Procreate for the panels?
Not usually, no. Oh. It has a really good tool. It just like makes the box, and you can like make whatever shape you need, move it around, and then I export that and put it onto the page. Works great.
Oh, cool. I didn't realize you did that. That's funny.
Yeah, I mean, I only kind of knew about it because I always use that Manga Plus app to read practically all my manga nowadays because it's, easy, free. I get caught up on everything that I want to read, or mostly everything, I suppose. But
so that's one where like you pay a monthly fee and get everything. Is that sort of how that works?
No, it's completely free. They just put up free chapters of everything.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say because like stuff like Comixology and stuff for American comics, it's always been frustrating that they don't like have everything, and they don't have things when the physical comics come out, or it was that way for a long time anyway. So like, you'd have to eventually like maybe you get a few issues, and then you have to buy the rest of the series, or you have to wait for it to come out. And all that. It seems strange that it didn't just release it all, and let you kind of pay a monthly fee and just have all the books. That seems like what it should be like Netflix. Or it's not like you
Right.
get 2 episodes into a show on Netflix and then you got to pay a separate thing to watch the rest. That'd be odd.
Yeah, I mean, they could totally do like an American comic magazine in the style of like a Shonen Jump magazine where they have all of the new chapters or, in this case, issues of the whatever comics in one big thick magazine. And then you just buy a subscription to get caught up on all of them.
That would
That would
be
be
a great
awesome.
idea. I would read way more different books if they had something like that. Try out new series and stuff. Why don't they do that?
I don't know, honestly. I guess maybe they're like, oh no, we want to go digital and we want to get more money per issue. So
They
let's
need to be
just.
making it easier for people to find comics, not harder. Like we need to like attract new readers, and if there's like a
You're crazy.
paywall, if there's any kind of paywall, they're not gonna, because they're probably just mildly interested anyway. So they're just like, oh, $7. They're like, meh. So I hope they start doing that. Like put out more free content and a really good website, like that one you mentioned for
I
American
think
comics.
the closest thing we have to that is like the previews magazine,
Yeah,
where they
sort of.
show like
Yeah,
previews of newer comics. It's like, kind of close, but
yeah,
not
yeah. Kind
exactly.
of a catalog of stuff. Yeah. I mean, I
Right.
haven't gotten a previews in a long time, so I actually don't know if they changed the format. But it was always just sort of a catalog of books. They didn't really have that many previews, except for like for some of the bigger books might have a few pages, but most of the time it was just a listing.
Right, and I've seen like those Shonen Jump magazines, and they are so thick.
Yeah,
It's like half of a phone book that gets delivered to your house.
yeah, yeah. Like if someone like Image or something did that, that'd be a good idea. Why don't they do that?
I don't know. Honestly, I kind of get why DC and Marvel don't do it because like they want to get people on subscription feeds in a different way. DC, when they were trying to do their DC streaming service, they were they were going to have the comics available as part of the streaming service, from what I was told.
Oh, really?
And
Oh, the DC.
whatever happened,
Yeah,
it just kind of fell through. And then they were like, let's just all do Warner, HBO, all the whatever.
right.
But yeah, I know that Crunchyroll, which is an anime streaming service, they also had like a similar idea beforehand of also offering up free manga as part of their streaming service. And they didn't
Cool.
really usually have a lot, and apparently not enough people were really looking at it or
Really?
even knew that it existed. So might have been a marketing issue there, but
Yeah. Yeah, you'd think they'd be able to pull it off pretty easy because I think everybody kind of knows Crunchyroll, and it's been around quite a long time. Like I think that was even around in the '90s, maybe, or early 2000s at least.
yeah, now they're together with Sony's Funimation, so now they're bigger than ever.
Oh wow, okay. Yeah.
But
I wish that like the American comic websites where you could pay the monthly thing. I really wish that they would have same day releases as print. Like instead of like before it was like you wait a year. I think it even started as a year or maybe it was 6 months. Like you wait 6 months to see the new comics like with your subscription, and then it was 3 months, and now
Yeah.
it's a month. So it's like they're slowly getting there. It's just like just go there. Like you're gonna end up there. Just have it all come out. Make it easy for everybody to see the new stuff. That's what they want to see.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, the comics industry as we see it in America is not doing so well. And sometimes it's because they're not putting out good quality content, and sometimes it's because they're just not utilizing the tools that they have, right? And I think it's this combination of both for why we don't really see it picking up. But at least we got the indies and passionate creators still doing their thing out there, you know?
Yeah, I love that indie comics are having more of a boom right now. You know, it's needed. They were kind
A
of
lot of
forgotten for a
people,
lot of years. You know.
a lot of people are doing their own, projects like like doing Reaper, like they're doing their passion projects and stuff, and I love seeing that. So
That was a big part of how I got into other comics. Was I got in through Image, you know, all the crazy Image titles. But while I was at the comic book store, the stuff that appealed to me wasn't Spider-Man and stuff like that yet. It was like some of the indie comics that I saw, the black and white stuff. That was always more interesting to me anyway. So I really like seeing individual creators, visions and stuff. You know what they seem to have fun with.
Right. So, do you have a favorite indie comic out there, or an indie comic that you're looking forward to?
Reaper.
There's one for sure.
I'm not sure. You know more about this one, Ray.
I do
I haven't
have
been able to
one,
pick up
but
many books.
I'm a bit biased on it because it's our best friend's comic. But Brent Ingstrom's The Rise is going to be a really really good book, and he's got
Yes,
another
it
one
will.
coming out that's going to be even just as awesome. So, looking forward to those. But I mean, I love everything that I see from indie creators. You know, it's always a passion project, and that's what gets me excited about wanting to make comics. And gosh, I'd have to really think to pick one in particular.
No problem. So, I guess a
It's the
big
coffee.
question that I'm sure people would love to hear an answer to, especially aspiring creators out there. If you could give advice to someone starting out with the experience that you've gained over the years, what would the advice be?
You mean about drawing or getting into the business? Like,
I guess, like, starting off in comics, what you would want to know if you were starting off, you know?
Well, I know for me, like I mean, it worked out the way it did, but I knew that I needed to turn it into a career that made money. So I did every possible job: penciling, inking, coloring, lettering, design, everything else. And that got me, a cool resume, and it got me working on with all these different publishers and stuff. But what I really wanted to do wasn't necessarily work for Marvel and DC and all that stuff. That was kind of a cool thing to do, but it wasn't really my passion, and that was making my own books. So I kind of wish I would have focused on that more from the beginning. So I guess it's sort of like, try to figure out what you really are passionate about and what your ultimate goal would be, and maybe focus on that early, instead of like chasing the Marvel and DC or whatever, seems to be the goal. Like being like in Hollywood, it's like working on certain blockbuster movies, but maybe that's not what you really want to do. It's like making a smaller film or something. That's really your passion, or horror or something. Whatever you really love, try to focus on that.
Yeah, that is an interesting point, because like one of the things that I would personally like tell myself if I could talk to my teenager self is like just start early, focus on one thing and stick to it, because I spent way too long with the self-doubt, not sure what I want to do. People always like, no matter what you say you want to be when you grow up, somebody's like, "Oh, are you sure about that?"
Oh yeah. I heard a lot of that. Like,
that's what made me quit for 4 years. I missed out.
Yeah, Renee totally stopped drawing.
I barely found my way back to comics, like barely. I got lucky.
Right. Yeah, I spent too much time not drawing because I wasn't sure if I could do it in the first place. And now I'm trying to like pick up for lost time, essentially, because I know now that I want to do it.
Yeah. Well, I think you're doing a great job.
I
So
think you're doing pretty good.
Thank you.
I think young Dan fan would be very proud.
And Renee, advice you would give?
Oh, come on, mushy brain. Okay. Um, let's see. I think one of the things that was really hard was when I started posting my artwork, out there. Like I went back then, it was like digitalwebbing.com, like it's forums, and it was just really active. People posting their art and their sequential work and everything. And like the first time I put up anything like of a character, I'm like, I'm gonna put my art out now and it'll go great. And then somebody's like, the head's big. So I just like took it off and then I didn't go back for like a month. So my advice would be to just put it out there and not pay too much attention to everybody that is telling you how to do things, or don't let their criticisms like keep you down. I thought that criticism was just like the end of everything. I'm like, I guess I draw heads big. I can't be in comics, like that kind of thing. So
Yeah,
and yeah.
look at where it's coming from too, because like some of the people that were giving you advice back then weren't even necessarily that experienced or like that, like but she held their opinion as like, oh, I have to stop what I'm doing and change it. When like, I don't know, nowadays, like we're 20 years into the business and we wouldn't say those things to a young artist. We would just kind of encourage them to keep going and explore what's working for them or things like that, instead of like, there's a certain way to do it and you have to do it that way, which was a lot of what we saw when we were coming in.
And then I think, like, I personally believe that artists kind of grow on their own in some areas. Like a lot of people will be like, oh, you need to work on your anatomy, for example. But I actually think form and energy is way more important, and atmosphere and mood. And when you start paying attention to the anatomy too much, you're thinking about muscles and you're not thinking about the character as much, like the overall feel and the flow and the energy and all that. So I never really say anything about anatomy, unless they're, getting really up there and that they're at that place where working on anatomy would help them, but they've already like evolved enough where they can apply the rules, if that makes sense. Like they let themselves grow as an artist, like what in the wild, and now they can start learning the rules. If that makes sense.
Yeah, right. And like you were saying before, the internet can be crushing in the funniest of ways. It's like it's funny how like one little comment can just like hit your soft spot sometimes. It's like I've been posting like the cover for Reaper naturally, and I got a comment that was like the P looks like a T, and I was like, oh shit.
Oh.
I was worried about that, and somebody said
I didn't read it. I didn't read it that way.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, that was
it's
the
always
one
bad
thing I
when
was
it's the
worried
thing.
about, and you said it.
Yeah, when it's the thing you're worried about. Yeah. You're like, oh.
Yeah, so
Right.
definitely don't let those words carry too much weight. Like it's always good to like keep an open ear, for the good stuff that comes through. But I let every single criticism, every single little comment, like change everything I was doing, and it was just a huge waste of time. So it made my art worse at times, So I know it's hard though, especially now, like to kind of turn off your ears and not let it get to you. It takes time.
Yeah, it's definitely a difficult thing to get used to try to take criticism without letting it get to you mentally. And I think it's something that everyone just kind of, I guess, learns how to deal with it throughout time, but it'll still like every now and then hit their soft spot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Your vulnerable
Or just have
spot.
a big old ego like me. I'm great.
Yeah, there you go.
No, I did
Everyone should just
hear a lot of
do
artists
instead of
talking about
kind
how
of.
you have. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying. Early on, I did read like every article that was in Wizard magazine or anything that an artist or creator said. I tried to take that in, like, and a lot of what they said was to have thick skin. You're going to hear really negative comments. You're going to get torn apart by editors. So like, just let it roll off you and continue going because you're improving and all that. So I kind of, I don't know, for some reason I figured that out pretty early. So a lot of the, like any negative comments I would get didn't really stick to me. I don't really know how to tell people to do that, but for me, it worked out that way. So
Lucky.
I don't have too much of a problem with.
Give us your powers.
Yeah. You know, I do think that
It's a big fat
for
ego.
girls, we're a little bit more vulnerable to that type of stuff.
Yeah. That's
That's my theory anyway.
right.
Yeah. I believe the same. But like in going back to like what people say to you, the same applies to them telling you how to draw as well, like how to draw, not just like giving criticisms, but like actually telling you how to draw. Like I had a lot of that happen. Like oh, you have to, like I think I mentioned that one to you. Like I had one piece of Savage Dragon. I guess we showed that on our stream, huh? Do you still have that? You could send to her or something. But yeah, so like it was in a contest. Yeah, it was in a contest, and like it was like the final round or whatever. And so I picked this ridiculous shot that I had never ever tried to do before ever. And then like my opponent did a really, flat on simple shot, and it looked, amazing. It was inked really professionally, and he's a great artist and everything. So I had people telling me that I needed to learn to draw simply first and before I to try the hard stuff. Luckily, I didn't listen to that one, but for a while it really threw me for a loop. Because going for like those tough shots and stuff is like, that's how you really grow. Like you're saying, I'm going to tackle this hard thing, so after you do the hard things, like, the simpler ones are a lot simpler. Though just standing is still very hard. It's just someone sitting.
That is one of the hardest things to draw. Someone just standing or sitting, making that look good and not all weird. Yeah, that thing that they said to you with that particular piece. By the way, I can't find it at the moment. I'll keep looking, but that really frustrates me because you did the coolest, most dynamic piece there, and so to have someone say like, "Don't do that. Do something less dynamic and cool." I just disagree with that.
You didn't see his.
No,
his was very good.
I'm sure it was, but I'm sure I did see his. I saw everybody's art on digital webbing back then, and everyone was drawing the cool front shot pose of someone looking tough. I drew the same thing. I was drawing that all the time. So seeing hers, like, a character flying towards the camera and a car flipping and an explosion and all this stuff, and she did do it well. Like all the anatomy and everything looked really good. So it's like they were just trying to find something to critique, really. Like to make themselves sound smart. It's kind of how I see it.
It was really weird because, and I would get comments that like, I would be in situations where people would say like, oh, you only won this contest because you're a girl, because I was like one of like maybe two on the website at the time. Like, luckily there's a lot more now, which is awesome. But at the time it was just like me and cat stags, like pretty much. So like, yeah. So, so people would like I'd win something, and like I would think, openly that I did a good job and that it was in the running. But when they say that, it's just like, oh, maybe I did just win because I'm a girl, and that really just hits your self-esteem. Like, I don't know.
Which was not true. I say this all the time, but the very first drawing I saw of yours was it was another art contest in those forums, and it was to draw a cave woman. And everyone else was drawing a sexy cave woman in like the same kind of pose and whatever. And she drew this like beastly woman, like hunched over the leg of a dinosaur, gnawing on it. And it looked amazing. And I had no idea she was a girl, but that was the one that stood out to me as just the coolest, most character, driven piece with the most dynamic pose and all that. I loved it. And then I found out she was a pretty girl. So that was awesome. But that was afterwards. I liked her art first.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Sometimes when you do the one thing that's unique, it stands out more.
Yeah. And she was the one doing it. Like I had been on there for years looking at art, and I had gotten submissions and stuff at the time through our company and stuff, like for different projects. And I had seen so much art, and hers stood out to me immediately. I was like, whoa, what is this? Like, I haven't seen anybody drawn like that. And again, I didn't know she was a girl. So all those guys that had that opinion, they were wrong. And I think they were jealous. So if you're watching all those,
no, don't say that. Nobody was jealous at all. It was just odd. It was odd being on a forum and trying to get into comics from there, but that is where I heard about San Diego Comic Con, and that changed everything. So I owe that website a lot.
Yeah, no,
But yeah,
I love visual editing
definitely,
too, but
yeah. Mhm.
sorry.
But definitely, going back to advice and stuff, like you just can't let people tell you how to draw or, what methods to use or any of that stuff. Like, just pick the one that feels right to you. Like, even if it's drawing with a crayon with your feet, like, just do that. Get really good at it. If that's like the way that you make the best comics, go right ahead.
There's probably
So,
people on TikTok doing that,
Probably.
drawing with crayons in their feet.
That is a funny, a good point. I think you make though, Renae, because like one of the things that frustrate me, and I'm sure I'm guilty of this as well, of course, because I do reviews. But whenever I ask someone for like some feedback on a story, and they come back at me with like a rewritten version of my story with how they think it should go,
oh, really?
that like hits my soft spot once again, but it turns me more annoyed than anything else, because it's like,
Well, that's
no,
understandable.
Yeah,
you
That's not my
wrote your own
story.
version of my story. That's not the story I wanted to tell. It's like, just give me feedback. Just tell me what you thought about it. I didn't ask you to
Yeah.
rewrite it.
right.
And I find that I finally experienced, like I've had some good editors that were really good at it, so like they don't like put their personal taste in. They, actually point out things that are inconsistent, just things like that. And they try to say, hey, it would be neat if you did this to amplify this, like, so there's some really good feedback coming from editors if you find the right ones.
Yes, and that is the best type of editing to get. But I kind of relate that as being similar to that idea of people telling you like how to draw, like what style you should be using. You shouldn't be using this cartoony style. You shouldn't be drawing anime. You should be drawing this way, and draw the Marvel way, or draw blah 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 way. And sometimes it's like, no, I want to draw this specific way, and I want to draw it the best way that I can.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
You just reminded me of something back when I used to get submissions and stuff, or work in our studio. I still kind of feel bad about this, but I was young at the time, and I was kind of in that mindset of there's kind of a proper way of doing things, But this one guy, he was doing his webcomic, and he sort of had a deadline kind of inking style that did look really good, and it was sort of a manga style art too, which was really well done. He's gone on to be like the art director of Wizards of the Coast and stuff. He's a good friend of mine, but he at the time I told him, well, you should ink with thick to thin, and like varying line weights and all that. That's the proper way to ink. I kind of told him that, and I could see he kind of like maybe felt a little bad about the way he was inking, and now I look back on that, I'm like, I should just let him keep doing it the way he was doing it, because it was a style. It doesn't have to be the way that I ink or the way that Marvel says to ink or whatever. It worked the way it was. It was kind of graphic. It looked cool. So
I'm a firm believer. Like I came up with this term of an art bush, but like when you let your like artistic self like grow naturally, like let it become a big giant bush, and then finally you can look at the rules and start trimming it down. I know that's funny, but bush works. So, because you trim up a hedge, But I always keep that in mind, is like, don't apply like the how-to rules until you feel like it's time. Like I like perspective and stuff like that. Like for a longest time I didn't know how to do that. And it finally got to the point, like when I drew a comic, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to learn that now. And it was just the right time, So don't feel forced to, learn hatching at a certain time or any of that stuff. Because I thought I had to hatch too. I tried to do that, and it went horribly. So
I probably would have told you that back in the day, like maybe do some hatching, because hatching is the thing you should do and But I really love that analogy, honey, the bush thing, because the trimming it down, like once you let it grow and then trim it down into what you want it to be, that's really good. Even if it is the art bush, which does sound a little funny, but it's
memorable.
It is.
Same thing that applies to your writer's bush.
Right.
Right.
The writer's bush.
But I mean, some people, thrive off learning that way. Like Ray, he learned that way. Like he enjoyed the books and everything. So
I'm pretty technical brain, like I do kind of wish I would have grown up doing what you did though, which is just drawing from your imagination right from a very young age like that. Because I think that's really the point of comics is you're telling stories and you're making characters real. It's not like technically drawing arms and perspective and car wheels and stuff. Like that's not the point of comics. It's helpful, but it's not the point.
it's also harder to apply. Like I've seen, like when you learn the other way, like if you learn like purely technical, like from books and things like that, and then you try to, which usually ends up a little bit stiffer, of a style than it would be like an organic style. Applying like later on, it's like they think like, oh, now I should apply that life and energy to it, and it seems very difficult, way more difficult for them to do so. To do that, after they've already learned how to draw from all these other artists and books and things like that. So that's why I mentioned like let yourself grow first. Get your distinct style down, get your methods down, and then add what you think is beneficial.
80 to 90% of the stuff that artists struggle with getting over, like little humps that they go through when they're trying to learn to draw, most of it can be solved by just having a reference ready.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you see those little desk people that you position every which way, and it's why people have 3D models coming into the game now and stuff like that. It's because like when you see it and you have that artist brain, it kind of clicks how it should look,
Yeah. That is
feeling.
One thing though that I like about Renee's work is because she has never used reference really. She kind of had always just kept going until she got it. Like kept erasing and figuring it out and trying again. And I was different than that. I would use references. I would use the little dummy statue things, whatever. I've never been one to like use 3D models or anything like that, like they have in Clip Studio, but just because it kind of takes a while to get it posed and all that. But yeah, she just really kept at it until she got that arm, positioned the right way. And I feel like she's learned more about form that way, to where all of her stuff has form to it, no matter what she's drawing. Whereas like a lot of artists like me, where we learn technically and we look at a lot of references, or I used to anyway, I don't as much anymore, but it gets a little flatter, I think, than if you're really trying to push it out, like, work out that form. Mm-hmm. But obviously you need references for things like cars and things like that.
If you've never seen a horse before and you try to draw a horse, it's not going to work out.
Yeah. Don't get me started on horses.
The worst.
Evil creatures. Because they purposely have hard to draw bodies. The theory of mine.
Just a body.
Just like, what's the hardest body to draw? Oh, I know. And then they just like
horses.
Become a horse.
Who invented those?
Yeah, another thing is when I'm like trying to come up with like new monster designs, and I'm like picking out like different arms and legs and tails and trying to mesh together what could be like a new monstrous thing. I'm fairly like inexperienced in it, but obviously references help a little bit, so I kind of understand how to make it look animal and bestial, even though it's coming from like the depths of my imagination.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was one really good thing from, I took the Joe Kubert School, the comic book college, their correspondence courses, and on the VHS that they had at the time, it was Joe Kubert drawing, and one of the things he did was show how he used reference, which was like taking like a mask from Asian culture or something and using that to build a character or to use as an expression or like things like that. Like it wasn't a direct reference, like he wasn't drawing that mask or that animal or that whatever suit of armor or whatever. He would just take information from it and kind of piece it all together into a new thing.
Fiona Staples. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Go ahead. No.
Sorry. Fiona Staples, like back in Womanthology days, when I did that did that. She had a section in there, a 2-page section, like how to. And hers was how she draws monsters and creatures, which looked amazing. So she basically just said like she always tries to keep it grounded, and so she would take pictures of like, or she would find 2 different animals and like put them together, and she would have those references. But the way she wove them together created this really cool thing. So
That's cool.
I
Yeah.
thought that was,
It's been a while since I've looked at that. I'm sure I saw it at the time, but I
was
don't
really
remember
good.
it now. Yeah, I would like to see that again. I mean, she does make really good characters and stuff,
Yeah.
or creatures.
Tools are a very important part of the organic growing process. Like whatever you need, like you feel like you need that, use that. So.
Right.
No, there's one way to do it.
I still personally struggle with perspective more than anything else, and it's somewhat prevented me from drawing backgrounds in a lot of cases. So I'm trying to like push past that hump in my life and get better at including more backgrounds and trying to make sure that the perspective is right, trying to learn how to do that correctly. Because right now, like a lot of comics that I've come out with, it's just like me making it up because I don't know, whenever I use the perspective tricks, something I do is wrong because it just comes out looking weird.
Yeah,
I
no,
used
perspective is super tricky. I actually have a book that I think you would really benefit from. I know I did, because it was tricky doing perspective and like understanding all of it, and how it applies to characters and all that. It's this book called Perspective for the Comic Book Artist by David Chelsea. And it's actually a graphic novel where the whole thing is panels. It's all a story, but he takes you through the world of perspective in that way. And it's so engaging. I read the whole thing in one day, and I knew more about perspective that day than I had the years before trying to read every like real technical manual on perspective and all the art books and all that stuff. It's definitely worth it.
Nice, thanks.
I use the perspective tool a lot in Procreate. It's really good. It really does help. Like so usually I'll like sketch out kind of an idea because I'm kind of close. Like when I draw it now, like the perspective is pretty spot on when I just freehand it, and then I put on the grid and everything and just kind of finalize everything. But it is very helpful, like using that tool. I used to use a ruler when I drew, just on paper, and that was ridiculously difficult. So, and I think Ray, like, didn't you make like giant grids or something like that? I forget what you
Yeah.
said.
Yeah, I grid everything out. And actually, that's a technique I learned from that book I was just telling you about. He had a way of, because when you're doing really crazy 3-point perspective or something, your vanishing point might be like a few feet away at sometimes. So he had a method of measuring out the side of the page and having your lines. It's hard to explain, but it's like you measure one side bigger than the other, and then you connect the dots, and that becomes your perspective grid. And it's still perfectly ruled in perspective. It's as if your vanishing point was off the page, but it's not. It's on the side of your page.
That would be way easier. Yeah.
It is. Yeah, that was a lifesaver when I discovered that, because I was like taping boards off my art desk and stuff to try to get these certain angles and stuff, and it was nuts. But that helped a lot. Nowadays, yeah, we got perspective tools in Clip Studio and stuff, which help with that. But
Yeah, Clip Studio probably has an
that
amazing
stuff,
one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to mention that earlier. The program Autodesk Sketchbook is actually a really good program, and it does have curvilinear perspective, which is like the fisheye lens kind of perspective. It has a tool for that. It's the only program I've found that has it. I don't know why, Clip Studio doesn't, and like Photoshop.
Clip Studio does now. It was on their next update. They added it, but you have to pay for the update. That's the thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know how to use it, but I know that they advertised having it. So
cool. Okay, I was wondering when it was going to happen. And Photoshop still doesn't have perspective tools of any kind that I know of. I use it currently, but I don't know if they have an update or anything.
Yeah, Photoshop was good when it first came out, but like as the years went on, it just like stayed super stagnant, and now it's super expensive for no reason.
Yeah. Yeah, that was rough when I was going to a tech school for art, and I was able to get Photoshop and Illustrator and Dreamweaver and like all these programs through them for free. And then a few years after I had graduated and gone on to doing my own stuff, I realized like, oh no, I have to buy those programs now, and they're $1,000. Back then, there was $1,000 to get Photoshop, which was insane.
Yeah.
You just had to buy it outright, one-time purchase, but it was so much money. I didn't have that kind of money back then. How do you even get it? Now they have the monthly subscription thing, but I don't know.
Which is good, but after like 10 years, you still don't own it, and you're just paying still paying every single month. It'd be cool to like be able to pay it off, and just have it,
just
like the old days. Mm-hmm.
I know some guys that have been using like colorists and stuff who just still have like Photoshop 10, and they just still use that. They were done. They were like, I'm not upgrading. I'm just going to keep using it. It works. I'm sure eventually it won't work on a new system, but they've got it working somehow.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely very crazy and over the top how expensive some of those programs can be. And now you have to like even pay for very basic programs like Microsoft Word now is like some sort of...
Do you?
What is with that?
Yeah.
That used to be...
Yeah, I don't use Microsoft Word anymore, and that's why, because I don't want to pay for it.
Man.
I just used whatever free version out there was, which apparently is and Google Docs and stuff like that.
Yeah, Google Docs.
That's what I use for everything now, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I've been using the Scrivener app for my script writing, but I think Google Docs is pretty good. Like it just, I don't know, it's just always there no matter where you are, like it's on different devices. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the one thing that I've appreciated about Google Docs is just how easy it is to share it to other people.
Yeah. And just being able to pull up a script I'm working on my phone or something to add like a little thing or something, that's been helpful. Actually, when our third child was born, we have another one now, but we were in California at the time, and I would have a baby strapped to me, and I'd kind of be writing a script on my phone while I was walking around with the baby outside, like walking back and forth, trying to keep it happy, typing on my phone. It's the only way to get it done when you got babies.
You guys are now doing your own comic streams where you're giving people advice on their art. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of an idea Renae had of wanting to just, highlight independent creators and try to give some kind of guidance without being too overbearing or like telling them how to do it, and just sort of have fun looking at people's art and projects and what they're up to.
And like it's just trying to give them what I feel is the right kind of feedback, like not the ones that shouldn't make them feel bad about themselves, but maybe it'll give them something else to think about. Like think of things differently, in the scene and stuff like that. And I just feel like we really need to encourage like the next generation of artists a lot, like show them that they can do it, show them how, stuff like that. So that way comics keeps flourishing. But we also just wanted to have fun and connect with other people. So basically just for fun. We're a bunch of weirdos. So.
All right. Well, I think we can probably wrap up this for now, but are there any links that you'd like to, any social media or links that you would like to shout out at the end of the video?
Sure, yeah, newquestcomics.com to get all of our comics and books and original artwork, and even custom commissions if you're interested in that. And I'm at Ray Dillon on most social media, and she's at Renae De Liz on pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, I know, or our YouTube, where to find it.
Yep, youtube.com/Ray Dillon. And that's where we're doing our weekly show on Wednesdays. Oh, and by the way,
come up with a name.
Yeah, we do. We've gone through a few names. One of them was Comic Talk at one point. So, but now it's just sort of, I don't know what we're calling it, but we're doing it every Wednesday. And anybody out there, if you're watching and you want us to check out your artwork, maybe talk about it on the show. Like Renae mentioned, we're gentle. We want to encourage you more than like rip it apart or anything. So you can send it to newquestcomics@gmail.com and we'll take a look.
All right. Well, you heard it here, everybody. Go check them out. And I'll see the. I don't know how to end videos.
One more thing. You never told us your favorite Disney movie, just the one. I just wanted to know.
Oh, probably Pinocchio.
Oh yeah.
Pinocchio.
Although
Hey,
I
same
do
with
love a
Brent.
lot of the classic Disney princesses as well.
Yeah.
Always will have a soft spot for Snow White and Sleeping Beauty, you know.
Bye.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you for having us
Toodles.
on.
Yeah, no
Bye-bye.
problem. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah,
Thank you, Dan Fan.
anytime. We need to have you back on ours too sometime.
Yeah.
Like it was really, yeah, if you want to.
With
I'm
Reaper.
down.